Okay, 1 2 1 2. How do you do? I, I just need to. I'm just so fucking annoyed and angry. I ended up Tuck Chi in Northbridge. The family that I've been getting laksa and chicken rice and laubak is they. It is today. I don't know what day it is. June 2026, and at the end of this month on the 30th, Tuck Chi, the parents are retiring, and Ming, God, I've been eating there for 35 years. It's some of the best Nonya cuisine that I've had. It's fantastic, beautiful, beautiful food. They ferment their own chili, everything. It's a great place. It's fantastic. It's a passing of an era. Anyway, today I was there. I just got a court. So my name is Craig Sweatsloot. I am a family lawyer. I specialise in family law, domestic violence, particularly marginalised Indigenous women and children. That is my main area. I was trained in the Northern Territory. I asked about when I got trained in litigation. I was trained under Rex Wild QC. I asked Rex Wild QC, how do you get good at what you do? He said that you go and work with the most marginalised people that nobody wants to help. They have a criminal history as long as your arm, and you help those people and do that, and you stay in those trenches for as long as you can. And when you come back to the big smoke, then you're going to cut your teeth on that, and then you're going to be really good at what you do. So big respect to Mr. Rex Wild, QC. Good looking rooster too. He was going to do my admission, except there was some other family friend of his that was getting admitted at the time, and me and this other guy, we didn't really get along. And I didn't want to cause a fight between me and this guy in front of Rex, so then I got admitted to law with Pat. All right. Otherwise, I would have been admitted to legal practice with Rex Wild, QC. Rex, one of the greatest trial lawyers of Australia. He's the one that got Lindsay Chamberlain off. He's the one that put away Peter Falconio's killer. Really, really good. Really, really good. Okay. So some of my credentials. I have a background of, I used to work for the Ombudsman for the Northern Territory, and I used to do outreach to Aboriginal communities. I was sat on ANZOA, which is the Australian and New Zealand Ombudsman Association. For that's the whole of the ombudsmans and everything for the whole of Australia plus New Zealand. Did that we used to fly down to Melbourne, and I used to go down to Melbourne and explain. Before all of this, prior to getting into that sort of work, that's my ice machine. You can hear in the background, my kids bought me. Prior to this, I had lived in Arnhem Land for 2 or 3 years as a backpacker, and I had a really good relationship and connection and really, really good friends with the Dingle family in Nooka, and my really, really, really close friend who we were best friends, and everyone we were best friends. And then he unfortunately later passed away, which was terribly sad. But anyway, but he talked to me a lot about family and also spirits and all these sorts of things. Okay, all right, it is all related. So, all right. So back to us. So we my main area of practice is working with marginalised Indigenous. My main expertise is working with marginalised Indigenous women and children, and men, but the most marginalised. That's my job. And when I also lived in Darwin, I worked in Darwin. I was also on a number of projects for the Ombudsman, for the rollout of the changes after 24. There'd been new 24 years of changes to the Ombudsman's Act, so we had to go and take that out literally to the communities and explain to people who lived out in these remote Aboriginal communities how the complaints process worked. So if you were not getting good services and the government wasn't doing very well, then we're here to tell you exactly. I want you to be able to complain, and part of it was complaints are important because complaints improve services. And I worked under Caroline Richardson, amazing woman, really, really amazing woman. She taught me really, really incredible high-level executive how to do business. Really amazing. How to get things done, right? And so at the time, the Darwin Hospital had 50% Aboriginal people and 50% white people, but 100% of the complaints were only white people. So that meant that all Aboriginal people were getting completely perfect services. And so that was a problem. So we did this outreach to try and engage with Aboriginal people to say, hey, what's going on? And trying to get them, if there's anything. And that was my job. Get out there, talk to people, not send out. And this is we're talking 2009, right? So we'd drive out there. This is what you do in the NT. Go out and see people and talk to people. And because I'd lived out there, people knew me. So we used to talk. And during this time, this is when I was studying my law degree in the Northern Territory, which is probably, I would say, the Charles Darwin University law degree is probably the best in the whole of Australia by a country mile for two reasons. One, Northern Territory is 50% Aboriginal population by birth. Secondly, they have such a focused professionals in the law university. We had people like the head of ASIC, Duncan Poulsen, took me for corporations law. The head of legal aid came in and talked to us. My contracts lawyer, lecturer was a professor. We had Rex Wild QC who came in into litigation. We had people like gosh, I don't want to leave it off the list. You just had incredible legal minds that were dedicated to the law in the Northern Territory. Okay, and so this all rolled out. Now, so my main area is marginalised, as Rex Wild said, marginalised Indigenous women and children, and I come from a background of in my own personal family, where my father was from Nazi-occupied Holland, where as a young boy, the Nazis came through. You're either with us or you're not. They either blew brains out or they didn't. My father experienced, I only understood this later in life, the trauma that he experienced as a child that I inherited. So, and it was about understanding his violence. He came from, when I moved to Port South Headland, and my son was in daycare, and one of his friends, his parents got a job somewhere else and moved, my son would be upset because his friend had gone. Okay, and he had to go through that. He had to go through that grief that his friend had gone. But my father came from a time where Johan, who was his friend across the road, were gone because the Nazis blew their brains out. So it took me a long time for me to understand that my father's understanding of violence was he thought that this is what my violence was. And I'm just going to give you a little bit. Anyway, I'm going to give you a little bit of it. But this is what led me to family violence. So I grew up in the 70s, extremely family violence. To start this with my story, and my mum left my dad. There's a whole range. I might do some other videos about this, but essentially, we're from Victoria. My dad was a builder. We were living in Wanneroo, early days. Wanneroo was the end of the metropolitan area. After that was a road up to Yanchep. There's a long story around that, but the day that I left my mum, we were driving along. I was seated in the middle. I'm in the middle. Dad's on the right-hand side driving mum's car because I didn't want to get in the car with him because he'd been driving his other car thinking he was this fucking a speed racer, and he was really upsetting me. I didn't want to get in the car, and that caused him to then smash up the house and bash my mother in front, and everyone wanted to make him happy. So what we did, let's go for a drive. Anyway, so we go for a drive in mum's car, and I'm in the middle, dad's on the side, and mum's on the left, and we're driving along. And then dad starts grinding the gears. There's a story about that, and I'll tell you that in another video. But anyway, cut a long story short, mum says, because mum bought this car by going to work because dad wasn't working, and we're talking like 1977, 7, and she bought this car. It was mum's car, and it was grinding the gears. And I said, mum said, can you not grind the gears? I said, can you not grind mum's gears? And dad said, he leant over and he put his foot down on the accelerator. He was doing 80 kilometers an hour, and when he was doing, and mum was saying, you need to slow down, you need to slow down, you need to slow down, and I was saying, you need to slow down, you need to slow down, you need to slow down. He then leant over me, he undid mum's seatbelt, opened the car door, and he pushed her out. And that, I was in grade 2, and that is how my mum left my dad. That's what I saw. And it was an era when you were told that if you were a boy and you grew up, that you would eventually become a domestic violence abuser. Boys grow up in a house, they see the dad do that, and that's what they do to their wife. I grew up as the youngest, and I saw my relationship with my mum. I swore that I was not ever going to have children, because if that meant that I then turned into that, I didn't ever want to have children. So I never want to have children. That's the easiest way to avoid that trauma for children is just not have children. So I decided never to have children. It wasn't until years later that I realized that was not the case. Okay? It's not the case that you grow up in a house of trauma and then you become abusive. You don't. It's actually well researched that family violence and crime is world's best practice. I'm a project officer, a government level project officer. The world's best practice is that crime and violence is a choice. So people choose to do crimes. You don't accidentally do crimes. People choose to do violence. They don't accidentally do violence. We might have an argument, and then at the end of that, we make a choice. We say, all right, do you know what? I'm going to leave it here. I'm going to go. I'm done. Thank you. We'll come back. Other people decide, no, I'm not. I'm going to do this. And so it is well researched. As part of my undergrad, it's well researched that violence, family violence, or family abuse is a decision that somebody makes. It is also well researched that alcohol and drugs does not cause a person to make that decision. It is actually also well researched around the world because there's hundreds of millions of people around the world that take drugs and alcohol that don't hurt and bash and hit people. We know that. It's well researched. The people that make the decisions to hit and hurt and harm people make those decisions when they are either on drugs or alcohol or when they're not. It is actually a decision. It is a deliberate decision. It is well researched. And same as crime. You do not accidentally do a crime. You do not accidentally act violently. You do not take a drug and act violently, because otherwise, what would that mean? Every person that took that drug and alcohol would be act violently and etc. etc. So, well researched. Crime and violence are violence, that is in negative violence, because there's also positive violence. We'll talk about that another time. Just like discrimination. There's positive discrimination, there's negative discrimination. So everyone needs to understand in the village that when we're talking about resources, that the abuse, the bad stuff, right, the bad violence, is a choice. It's a choice. Someone has decided that at this point I am going to do this. Right? It is a choice. It's as simple as that. The world's best practice during my undergrad in the NT, God bless, love the NT and their studies. So Australia is about 35 years behind as far as dealing with domestic violence goes, with legislation. The world's best practice is the Duluth model. Western Australia, you don't even need to invent this stuff. It's actually been done. Are the lights on? The world's back. So in Duluth, they started the Duluth model. There was a terrible intimate partner death. They brought in the Duluth model. In the next 10, after this horrible murder, in the next 10 years, there was not one intimate partner death. Once they brought it in, that's it. The Duluth model has not even been introduced into Australia. It requires a whole review of all legislation. I did an entire project on this when I was at university in Darwin. But anyway, that's domestic violence, okay? But here is the kicker. You can't start to do all of that work to fix up that problem unless you address marginalisation. Because marginalisation is one of the greatest impacts for domestic violence. People that are marginalised, marginalisation, anything. So marginalisation, poverty, colonisation. We'll do a video on that. There's actually a very good world-renowned academic. She was from India, that said every single ethnic community, the Inuits, the North American Indians, the Maoris, the Aboriginal, Australian Aboriginals, every ethnic community that had colonisation suffered the same fate. They all had higher infant death rates, they had lower life expectancy, they had higher incarceration rates, they had higher family abuse, they had higher rates of poverty, this goes on every single community that got colonised. What were some of the other clangers? Higher rates of self-harm, higher rates of harm against other people, so hurting other people, highest rates of incarceration. So yeah, you go. When I was working in Darwin, and I walked into Dondale, and I was like, there's only one white person here. Everyone's Aboriginal. This is it. So marginalisation, and creates. It's well researched. We don't even need to make this stuff up. This stuff has been known for so long. Anyway, moving past all that. So getting past all of the marginalisation in relation to. So marginalisation is very complex. It can affect people through poverty, colonisation, so I said, domestic violence, and a whole range of things. One of the biggest and easiest, two of the easiest things to attack. The two easiest things, the easiest things to do as a country, and as every Australian, the two easiest things to do that we can stop, we can start to address for marginalisation, is poverty and drug prohibition. That's it, and they are interlinked, because poverty puts people at the edge of society and causes stresses, okay, and causes problems because you don't have enough money and I want to buy a pack of cigarettes. Oh, there's $70. Oh, but I want to buy a 10-pack of alcohol. Oh, but that's $100. Oh, but I want to buy a gram of weed. Oh, well, that's $100. Oh, but I want to buy a gram of coke. Oh, but that's $500. This is where poverty and the prohibition. This is where the marginalisation, and this is where the stresses occur. We know all this. We actually know, as legal professionals, we know, and it is well researched, that prohibition does not work. We actually know that. The main person that has the main history quote about prohibition was the gentleman, I don't know his name. You can Google it. We've all got access to the internet. He was the guy that started the forensic science. He actually started forensic science at the New York police in New York. And in 1901, 1,000 people died from alcohol, because alcohol prohibition, because people were breaking up wood furniture and making alcohol and selling it. And what was happening was they were creating this alcohol, which was a methanol, and when you drank it and when your liver processed it, it turned it into formaldehyde. And once it did it, it created a situation where your organs then cooked literally over 3 days, and it was irreversible, and you died. 1,000 people in 1 year died in 1901. And the dude that was the scientist for the New York police said, prohibition doesn't work. It harms, I can't remember the exact quote, the poor, the marginalised, the poor, the young, the poor. He said, prohibition affects the young, the poor, the marginalised, and what did he say? Gosh, now he said prohibition affects the poor, the young, and the already marginalised. And he said it increases or prospers prohibition and organised crime. That's what he said. Say that. Google it, mate. I don't know. That's it. Right? We know that. It's 100 odd years old. Interestingly, in Australia, we have seen 20 years ago, no one was getting shot and blown up and firebombed over tobacco. So in Australia, what we've seen is that as the cost of cigarettes have gone up, we've created this quasi-prohibition for tobacco. What happens when prohibition? We have organised crime. Then what happens? Then we have all of these problems, right? We have marginalisation, we have people getting shot, getting killed, people dying, right? That's prohibition. We know that. It happened with alcohol, it happened with drugs, it happened with heroin, now it's happening with tobacco. We know, as lawyers, prohibition does not work. We actually know that. We know that. And there lies the problem. So if we're going to, and this is not about, there is some good drug laws, right? So, well, I'll tell you one of the things as a Western Australian, saying that I don't even know why this is not even being flagged, you know. First of all, if drug laws worked, people wouldn't be taking drugs. Okay, thank you. Good. Happy days. Move on with our life. The cocaine trade in Australia is increasing. Where's that coming from? Can I tell you, I come in from Indo with a piece of wood and everyone's all over me like Clive Palmer at a buffet. They're all worried about what the hell is in my wood. With prohibition, and now we're bringing in tobacco, which is even worse, and we're bringing in cocaine. I mean, back in the 80s and 90s, I mean, they were bringing in like weed from Papua New Guinea and stuff. But now we're bringing in tobacco, and floating in these things from in blocks from fucking God knows where of all this cocaine and stuff. Like, what's the biohazard on that? Has anyone brought that up in any meetings? Like, what the fuck are you all talking about? It's just absolutely so insane. Anyway, so cut to the chase. Prohibition doesn't work. We know it doesn't work. It has to stop. We need to end it. It is a disgusting thing that we have, my children have inherited from my generation, and I'm really upset and disgusted with. It does not work. If it worked, then there wouldn't be drugs. So criminal law, please correct me if I'm wrong. I'm not a criminal lawyer. The criminal law, from my understanding, from my studies, I don't do criminal, is that criminal law is meant to protect the person, property, and liberty. That's it. Okay? In a society, laws are meant to either protect your person, so no one can stab you or hit you or hurt you or do anything to you, and so you're protected. You own your property, that's your protected, right? You do that, do anything to my property, then you might commit a crime. And you also there's liberty, right? You can't do all those things. And the rule of law says no one can hurt my person, my property, or my liberty, all right? And all criminal laws are meant to fit within that realm, right? The Misuse of Drugs Act doesn't. There's the problem. And when I used to work in the NT and doing reviews of legislation and those sorts of things, we used to look at, how's the legislation going? Now, the issue with the Misuse of Drugs Act in Western Australia, which is probably some of the worst legislation that I've seen, that I think is going to become probably some of the most unethical in maybe 100 years' time legislation, Where do you start? If you there's principle there's professions, right? Medical, law, etc. If you put something in your body, if you smoke, if you eat too much salt, if you eat too much sugar, if you eat too much fat, if you eat too many hamburgers, if you smoke too many cigarettes, or if you drink too much alcohol, or if you do anything into your body, that is a medical issue, not a legal issue, right? If you are doing you into your body, that is a medical issue, not a legal issue. Simple as that, right? So it shouldn't actually be. Anyway, so that's it's as simple as that. It's a medical issue. Now, before I get past that, because if everyone's going to be clutching their peers, going, "Oh no, we need drugs," there are actually some good drug laws, right? So, for instance, the Misuse of Drugs Act. Let's talk about that really briefly. It's just a video. Misuse of Drugs Act. I'll tell you some issues with it. First off, they have a catch-all where they say that this is the issue for Indigenous people. So what made me annoyed today when someone was talking about closing the gap, and I said, you understand that you're trying to say close the gap and reduce the issues with problems in the communities and families and blah blah blah, but you understand that we have legislation. No, I haven't looked at it a while because I gave up a while ago. Probably, I doubt they've amended it. There's legislation, and part of the legislation says, well, get the facts. These drugs are illegal, and there's a catch-one. If there is any other new drug that arises that has a similar effect to any of these, then that new drug is automatically illegal. That's it. Catch-all. So if there is a traditional Aboriginal, which I do know from Arnhem Land, a traditional thing they smoke or use, that under the legislation is automatically illegal. Right. That's one of the issues with the Misuse of Drugs Act. The other issue with the Misuse of Drugs Act is that sorry, I said everything. One of my real concerns, and at the moment I'm in Western Australia, and mate, pick your battles. I'm just in Western Australia. So this is just about Western Australia. At the moment, there is a real problem that my generation, with this Misuse of Drugs Act, has given to this new generation, which is a real concern. And my concern is, because I'm a DV lawyer and I'm trying to work with marginalisation, that when I come to WA, no one's talking about this. No one's having any discussions about this. Okay? My actual concern at the moment, and we'll talk about, I'm going to tell you a little story first, and then I will tell you about something that is a real problem in Western Australia, okay? When I first came to WA, I was doing family law for marginalised Indigenous women and children in Carnarvon. There was a drug group, we were having a group of people. I'd just come from Darwin, and in there was the police, there was the rehab people, there was the hospital, there was me because I was a domestic violence, Aboriginal domestic violence person, and there was a police lady. And anyway, we were all in this group, and there was someone from UWA, and we were having a talk about being able to address the issue of drug use in the Gascoyne, because it was apparently the highest in Western Australia. And I was like, well, go Gascoyne. And I'd been invited, and I was like, hey, how you going? My name's Craig, I'm from Darwin. And I love these things because I'm a project officer. Let's get amongst it. So anyway, old mate from the rehab, he appeared to be the chairperson. So he started off. Anyway, Anyway, we've done up the posters and we've done them up, and there's basically a poster and it says, just don't take any drugs. And I went, okay. I think Nancy Reagan ran that one, but anyway. But okay, all right. I'm part of your group now. I'm new here today. I'm a new guy, so I've just got a few questions. Can I just ask a few questions? He's like, yep, sure, ask some questions. All right. Because you've got some posters. We've got some posters, and we're going to put them up, and we're going to let them all around. Everyone's going to know what's going on. So that's good. We're going to put up some posters. That's great, because I just want to know what the posters are. That's right. So we've got a problem with drugs and alcohol in the Gascoyne region. Yep. And we've got the police, and we've got the hospital, and we've got the rehab, and we've got lawyers for domestic violence, all these people. Yep. Okay. So first, what antecedent data have we collected as to why people are using drugs to higher levels in the Gascoyne as opposed to other parts of Western Australia? Yes, sir. What antecedent data has this group collected or found out as to why people are using drugs and alcohol to a higher rate than people in Perth or anywhere else? Why? Someone said, I think it's people passing through. And someone went, I don't know. And someone went, I don't know. I said, hang on, okay guys, sorry boys and ladies, I'm a project officer from Northern Territory, so everything's a little bit more orderly than I think, okay? We need to know what the antecedent issues are, okay? We need to know why or what the antecedent issues are, which is creating the problem that we want to try to address, so we can then talk about how we're going to look at fixing it. It's like, and I said it's like bushfires, or it's like heart attacks. What are the things that happen before a bushfire or a heart attack that might lead to a bushfire or a heart attack? You might want to learn those things, because you just don't want to suddenly say to people, don't have a bushfire, don't have a heart attack. Anyway, whatever. The young guy from UWA was like, hey, they hadn't done it. They hadn't done any antecedent information about why people were using drugs to a higher level in the Gascoyne region. All right. Now, what happened was the UWA guy said, hey, do you know what? I'm happy to do that. I said, okay, get on to that, because that's really important. Why you're not doing that in WA? Why that's not part of your government process? I have no idea. That's normal in Northern Territory. Anyway, and then Mr. Head of the rehab, head of the whatever committee thing we were seeing, piped up, and he said to me, let me tell you a story. I said, go on. He said, well, I had a lady and her son was hungry, and so she rolled him a joint. I said, right, yeah, it's a good talk. It's a good story. That is actually what he told me. Bit of a dog whistle. I said, all right. I said, all right, well, I'll tell you a story. Okay? If you have two parents and they both work in government and they have for 15 years, and their son is hungry, they're probably not rolling him a joint. So my question is, why is that woman rolling him a joint? Do you think they might want to work out why? Anyway, good stories. So next I said, okay, look, thank you. I think I'm getting invaded. 1 second. So the next part was all right, so we haven't done any antecedent data, so we don't know why there's what's causing the problem, whether it's poverty, marginalisation, domestic violence. And I said these things. Is it because of poverty? Is it marginalisation? Is there domestic violence? Is there, lack of employment or lack of there's actually stuff out there. They know this from the Vietnam War. There's a thing called the rat cage thing where they put rats in cages and they did a test and they gave them drugs and the rats basically took all the drugs and died. But then they made the rat cage better and happier, and then they were better. All right, but so there's all these things that are available. Okay, anyway. We don't in the territory. You just go and look for the one thing we do is when we had a problem. The first thing we do, what's the world's best practice? Instead of having to make it up ourselves, what is happening in the world that is the best practice for the problem we have to address? And then I don't have to actually do the hard yards because I can go, oh, by the way, this country, Finland, they've got I did this with early education. They've got the best early education. Oh, by the way, this country, Finland, all these countries, they were doing all these best practices. We didn't have to rewrite it or make it up. They'd done it already. You just copy it. It wasn't hard. It's actually easy. It was the easiest job in the world. Anyway, so I said to them, all right, you're doing this committee for the goal for the Gascoigne, right? And the next question was, you've done a review of the Misuse of Drugs Act for the Legislative Assembly? And they went, no. So, what the fuck are you talking about? And they said, no. I said, well, you're trying to address the issue of drugs and alcohol use in the Gascoigne, right? And this is what you're here for, and you haven't reviewed the legislation to let the Legislative Assembly know what is working and is what not working for your community, or writing down. By the way, hey, when I spoke to people, what we found out was that because our people are where they are, blah, 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 they're getting blah, 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 blah. None of it. They had not reviewed any of it. They had not looked at the legislation to go back to the government and say, oh, by the way, the Misuse of Drugs Act, this doesn't work in Carnarvon. No, we'll just take it as it. We just keep fucking whipping us with. What do you mean you haven't looked at the legislation? You're trying to fix a problem, and you haven't even looked at what the law is for the problem. So you haven't looked at what the antecedent data is that's causing the problem. You haven't actually considered what is why people are taking drugs. You haven't actually considered whether the current legislation is working or needs to change, or there needs to be something a little bit different because, you're only 900 kilometres away from Perth and there's all this other rubbish and there's all this marginalisation because there's not much employment and there's all these other issues. Haven't even looked at the piece of legislation that actually refers to the issue we're trying to fix. But old mate had a poster. That's good. Okay, all right, so we moved on. And then I think someone said, oh, but there's meth in town. Oh, fuck. Okay, yep. All right, meth. Okay, all right, let's talk about meth. What about meth? The meth zombie apocalypse propaganda? Is that what you're talking about? Said, well, I know I've been seeing the meth zombie, and this is 2015. I've seen the meth zombie apocalypse propaganda. Yep, I've seen that. Yeah, it's terrible. It hasn't come through my suburb yet. It hasn't come through my house. I haven't had the zombie meth apocalypse yet, but I've seen all the terrible doom and gloom. Yep, I know that. I said, you know there's worse drugs than meth. Hey. You know that, hey? Because at the time, there was a drug in Russia, and you can Google this, called Crocodile. and people were mixing up like codeine and cement and something, and they were injecting it, and it was actually making their skin look like crocodile skin, and it was peeling. I was telling people it was peeling off the bone, and people, because of drug prohibition, their actual bones were like the flesh was falling off their bone. This is drug prohibition. I said the other problem with drug prohibition is that when prohibition, because back in the day, marijuana, that's a terrible one. Sativa could get rid of that because, that's going to make people, they're going to inject people in cinemas to get rid of that. That's the demon. All right, we got rid of that. And then, what happened with marijuana, which was the dumbest thing in the world, because of prohibition, it all went inside and went hydroponic. It is not the chemicals. It then went to indica, which is not a very nice plant. Indica is people that smoked sativa in the 60s, smoked it, eat brownies, laugh, giggle, get the munchies. Indica, people are like, oh, and then we start having people having mental health issues with cannabis. Yes, indica, sativa and indica are all part of cannabis. They are not the same. Oh no, but they're cannabis. Capsicum, a cayenne pepper, a Thai chili, a Scotch bonnet, a 7-pot chili from a Trinidad scorpion, and a Carolina Reaper. They're all capsicums, all part of the capsicum family. All capsicum, cayenne pepper, Scotch bonnet, habanero. They are not the same. If you eat a piece of cayenne pepper and then you eat a Scotch bonnet, you might realise really quickly that just because says it's capsicum, they're not the same. Same with cannabis, and this is the problem that our generation forced onto these children today. The actual weed that was okay and safe for people to use through prohibition, because everyone had to grow inside and don't grow and blah blah blah, brought in this new hideous, awful type of cannabis, which is smaller, and this is what prohibition does. Prohibition brings in things stronger because you have to do smaller. There's an internet. You can actually look at it all. Anyway, back to the story with what happened while I was at this place, right? So anyway, they hadn't done any Anderson data. They hadn't looked at legislation. I told them there was a lot worse drugs than meth, which Mr. Rehab was at that stage. I think he was having kittens. I think he literally was having some sort of issue. Right then, the wonderful police officer, lady police officer next to me said, "He's right." Oh, thank you. She said, "If it wasn't for alcohol," she literally said, "If it wasn't for alcohol, I wouldn't have a job." That was out of her mouth. Yeah. I'm not sure if it comes as a surprise to you, but I actually didn't get invited to any more of those meetings. There you go. But I will tell you what. That lady, who was the only brave person to stand up in that meeting in Carnarvon in 2015 and state the truth, was right. But I will also tell you that the Misuse of Drugs Act in Western Australia at the moment, and this is the most, yes, it caused marginalisation. Marginalisation impacts domestic violence. We can't be addressing domestic violence and all these sorts of things. We have to try and address marginalisation. Yeah. The issue with the drug prohibition at the moment is that there is a theory at law. I'm pretty sure it's called rape theory. All right. Studied at law. The term rape is a 14th century term. It's not. So the modern term is sexual intercourse without consent. Right. So we don't actually use the R word. The old 14th century term of rape is, and there's actually a thing called rape theory. And what the rape theory is that if you have the penalty for rape is hanging, so death. So if you rape someone, you die. What they worked out was that if that penalty for rape was death, then the instance of victims dying escalate. They know that. This is legal theory. I mean, I was at the university a really long time ago. I'm not a criminal lawyer, but that's, and my understanding, not a criminal lawyer, and my understanding, that's why you have sexual assault without consent, and there's like a whole range of how that can occur, is a crime. And I think it's 15 years. I'm not a criminal lawyer. It's 15 years, all right? It's serious crime, terrible crime, all right? If you kill them, there's murder, separate crime, different, all right? And that is because of the rape theory. Because if you have the same, if you do this, if you commit in the rape theory, rape, you might as well kill them, because if you get caught, you're going to get hung, all right? But if you kill them, there's no witness, you might get away with it, it's the same penalty, that's it, you might as well kill them, right? And that, I know it's really gross, right? It's a gross law theory, and my understanding was called rape theory, but that was theory. It's really old school, archaic criminal law theory. Anyway, so, and that's why it had to be separated out, okay? Because if you have the penalty being death, then this happens, death increases. In Western Australia, so life sentences in Australia, which is, we don't have death penalty, obviously. So life sentences in Australia is 25 years, okay? There's case law on that. Can be a bit longer. There's high court decisions on how long you can be non-parole, whatever, all right? The longest sentences, so life, 25 years, which is a long time in Australia, is for the most heinous crimes. Murder. I think treason is in there, which is a weird one. Murder, arson, I think is in there as well, because if you light a fire and someone's in the house, like there's a real narrow group of offences where it's life, okay? And what Western Australia did, they brought in legislation that if you get caught with an ounce of meth and you can prove it, you get life, all right? Good talk. Great. Here's the problem though. If I am a father and my daughter, beautiful 26-year-old daughter, decides to become a police officer, and well, she's not. She was a real scooty brain and she wanted to be a cabinet maker. Don't talk about law. But let's just say, me as a parent, my beautiful daughter or son wants to be a police officer. And this is my problem with the prohibition, drug prohibition. This is the part that really disgusts me and why we need to end this. It needs to end. We need to stop it for this generation, because what we are doing, we have no idea what we are walking into, right? If my beautiful 26-year-old daughter is a policewoman and she is sent by her sergeant down to some boys in a car and they've got a kilo of meth, right? And they are done. Those guys are cooked. They are nicked, right? They might as well kill every single police officer in the room because they're going to get the same penalty. That's the drug laws that we have now. It is insane. It's I don't even know whether anyone, it's like some weird chaser meeting. Did anyone actually read this out loud? Oh, okay. So if someone gets caught with an ounce of meth in Western Australia now, it's the same as life in penalty. Oh, okay, all right. So he might as well just try and shoot the policeman that who's that, an ounce of meth? Boom, shoot you in the head. Now I'll just ride off on my electric scooter. Honestly, I am not even joking you. And there's a thing called trigger theory, where once something happens, boom, off we go. That is the dumbest stuff. This is where we're up to in Western Australia. It is the dumbest stuff I have ever come across. And in being able to deal with domestic violence or any of these sorts of things, it is just absolutely insane. And the current misuse of drug laws is actually putting young police officers at risk, and it's just beyond belief. All right, that's the issue. Let's get down to some brass tacks and normal people and our current children. So kids go to festivals. Everyone's at the festival. Dom Dollar, he's an Australian DJ. He was in Perth, January, not last year, the year before. I went to his concert. It was awesome. I'd seen his Vegas show. Man, I was going to go see him. I went in for 100%. Gen X went there. I went down there. There was probably 6,000 people. Probably the oldest person there. Dom Dollar from Darwin. Hey, Darwin represent. This is the issue. This is, yes, I'm a domestic violence lawyer. Yes, I need to be looking at being able to do what we can do with domestic violence, but we have to talk about the problem first, which is this stupid drug prohibition. No one is having the conversation. Everyone is too fucking scared to be having this conversation, and they do not understand what they are putting our children at peril for. Right? So this Dom Dollar concert, right? I don't know, there would have been 5,000 people there. It was in Perth. Every single hotel around there was full. Every single cafe around there was full. Every single pub around there was full. That whole place was packed out. I don't know how much Dom Dollar, I can't remember. I think Dom Dollar ticket was like $124 or something. It was like millions and millions and millions and dollars. And all those people there were, all the kids there, they were 24, 25, 26, or 19 through to early 30s, and there was all people like me. There was 5,000 people there. And this is the thing though, is that, and we all know this, these are all tradies. These are all our next generation. These are all our, tradies and school teachers and these sorts of things. And we have given them this dumb drug prohibition. I know. No one was, I don't think anyone was smoking weed. I'm pretty sure everyone was. They were all fucking hornos, okay, as we all know. But here's the thing, though, is that every single one, there was no fights, there was no police issues, there was no problems. There was this incredible thing that happened for all of these young children, or these kids, right? But under our current laws, all of them are criminals. But if any of them got caught or whatever, they lose their apprenticeship, or they lose their career, or they lose whatever it is. This is what we have set up for people, for our children. If they make decisions, or if they choose to do whatever, because they do, because as I said in the beginning, if drug laws worked, there wouldn't be any drugs. This is what we've done for this generation, okay? We've set up a system where we are forcing our children to be criminals if they make a choice, right? It's now extended into vapes. People are getting vapes are illegal and tobacco. This nano prohibition is just insane. It needs to stop. Okay? How does it stop? People need to have a conversation. They need to understand. There are world best practices. So in Portugal, they have, so there's no issues. In Portugal, you have any drugs in it, that's fine. If you have more than 10 days supply, they say, oi, why you got 10 days supply? And they talk to you and say, what's going on? And if you get caught more than 10 days supply, they sit you down, and I think you sit down with a social worker, a psychologist, and a doctor, and they say, hey, what's going on, buddy? You all right? Oh, no, I just didn't want to have to go out. You know, okay, you all right? You're okay? And off you go. No fine, no nothing. They have the lowest recidivism for drug-related crime. Drug-related crime is possession, manufacturing and importing. And that's their drug-related crimes. Breaking into house, their drugs, stealing cars, they're property crimes. They're poverty crimes. That's not drug-related crime. I think they had the lowest, last time I looked, they had lowest stats for overdoses, lowest teenage drug use in the world, lowest prison rates. They also brought in a universal basic income, which is something Western Australia should do anyway, because our welfare system's silly. But they all wonderful outcomes. But the other thing is that my tax dollars that are being used for police are not being used and wasted chasing kids that want to go and have a good time and do nothing and dance at a festival. When you go and chase the people that are doing things like, like pedophiles and, doing child sex crimes and chase up all that stuff. Won't we be focusing on let's funnel resources to go and get after, the guys that are doing some really terrible things. Let's free up our police officers from having to deal with those sorts of things. The freeing up of those resources, well, first of all, it's safer for police. The police shouldn't have to administer this type of Misuse of Drugs Act. It is so dangerous now, and it puts any police officer in such an awful position. Awful position. The public relationship between the police and through this piece of legislation is something that creates a real relationship issue between police and the community. All right, it's wrong. You take on a job and you're the bad guy because the legislation's shit. All right, that's it. End of story. Okay. So it puts our young people, people that want to be police people, at peril. So there are some good drug laws. So, for instance, there are some things that should be on the Misuse of Drugs Act, and people might not agree. Methamphetamine is not a nice drug. That should be on the prohibited list. All right, keep that one. Nitrazines, which is like the insanely deadly stuff, that should be on the poisons list. Absolutely, no questions about that. What's the other one? The ones that are actually like bad people, take that and you die. They're bad, right? Yeah, put them on there. There was this three: nitrazines, methamphetamines, and there's a term I can't remember. We'll talk about it, remember it in a second. But there's a like the PCPs and those sorts of those are really nasty ones. Like people don't need those. Yeah, make those illegal. All right, sure, keep those on the list. Right? But the rest of them, whatever, Trevor. If people, whatever. Talk to your doctor if you're having some issues. Anyway, so one of the interesting correlations, and I've recently looked at legislation that's changed a bit, but for a really long time, this legislation for and penalties for, and I used to be a legal drafter of legislation through towing, the growing of tobacco and prohibition of tobacco, or control of tobacco, and cannabis was exactly the same, word for word, penalty for penalty, fine for fine, exactly the same. Exactly the same. It was as legal to grow a plant of weed as it was to grow a plant of tobacco. That's it. As illegal. Literally just changed the names, tobacco, cannabis. Crazy. So, yeah, okay. Well, I'm not sure whether old mate from Carnarvon was in that meeting and he didn't like people growing plants, but you know, in the current environment, and this gets back to the biosecurity issue, people. Here's the question: do we want to have some disgusting bugs and whatever is coming into our country in illicit bales of tobacco that are gonna, with no biosecurity, and be disgusting and God knows what we're gonna get? That's option A, drug prohibition, or hey, how about we just let people grow a bit of tobacco and some sativa? Oh, sorry, that was the other drug that should be on misuse of drugs list, which is not popular, is indica. So nitrazines should be on there, methamphetamine should be on there, and indica as cannabis, indica should be on there as well, because that's a bad. Or you should have to have some license or reason to grow, because that's shit. All right, it's like hot chili. Those people are weird. I see hot chili, strange people. But those three things: nitrazines, meth, and indica should be on there. But hang on. So you either in America they have like tobacco clubs. People grow plants and they share them and they make cigars and they chew them and they do all this shit, right? They don't add stuff to it and then they all get together. It's people like a wine club, you know. But that's terribly illegal in Australia. If you did that, you're the same as if you're going to grow weed, all right? So, but anyway, if you straight away said, you know what, you can't have indica, but you can grow sativa. By the way, you can grow some tobacco, and what was the one I saw? I saw a really good piece of legislation where it was not illegal to gift it. You could grow tobacco and you could gift it, but you couldn't sell it. I can grow tobacco and give some to my friend. I'm not allowed to sell it to him. I was like, that's really clever, isn't it? Now, everyone's like, oh, everyone's going to be growing weed and growing sativa and growing, tobacco and all those things. Well, look, I like tomatoes. I buy them from the shop. But if my friend next door had some, I'd do it. But, growing a tobacco plant or whatever, it is what it is. So at the moment, we're saying that, no, let's have a war. Let's have people firebomb shops. Let's have people shoot each other, do all these criminal acts. That's okay. Biosecurity issues. But fucking God forbid if we're going to let Derek next door grow a tobacco plant. Derek is a menace to society. This is the batshit crazy stuff that is happening in Western Australia. We need to stop it. It needs to end. Okay? It needs to stop. We are creating an absolute fucking apocalypse for our children. It is mental. We need to all be talking about this. We're parents. You can't do this to our children. There's good drug laws, all right? So good drug laws, no meth. Meth bad. If you can grow it, sure, fill your boots, whatever, mate, all right? You want to give it to someone? Okay, I don't care. Good luck, dead duck. I've tried to grow lots of things, Best of British. Meth should be illegal. Nitrazine should be illegal. Indica, I'm sorry, this should be illegal. But it should be still illegal to take drugs and drive. They're good drug laws. It should be illegal for people to give them to minors or put them into people's treat. There's laws if we have a discussion as a community that we can say, hey, you shouldn't be doing this shit, right? There's things we can all agree on. There's I'm not saying that we need this the part where we have a talk about what we think is bad. All right, that's what we should be talking about, not just by the way. So there, don't get me wrong, there are certain drug laws. The interesting thing about importation, there's a case study from America. I think it was called Murder Mountain or somewhere, where they grew weed for like 40 years, and very successful. Police could never bust all these plantations. But what happened was, when it became legal, they all went out of business. And there was a documentary, and the guy said, after everything they did with prohibition, we always did well. And as soon as the thing that ended our business was legalisation, because then it wasn't worth anything. Well, that's a really interesting case study. Australia at the moment has a high cocaine issue, and everyone's like, oh, well, there's actually a very sensible resolution. Oh gosh, grab hold of your pearls, Grandma, because you're going to probably freak out. So cocaine originally used to be a dentist medication. They used to use it for numbing or whatever. So there is, and so also, oh, by the way, heroin, Google this, was actually a patented product by the Germans that was taken off them. I think it was made by Bayer during the second, and then it was taken as sort of a payment after losing the Second World War. So heroin was created by the Germans and taken off. So that was a thing. But cocaine used to be a medicine, and so cocaine is a medicine. So if the actual government went and said, you know what, we're going to import cocaine to research to find out what we can do with it, how we can use it, and then we're going to dispense it. We can control how it comes into Australia because clearly people are using it, but we want to be really clear about biosecurity stuff so it's not coming in with some weird-ass fucking mollusks or some fucking anything else in there, and we can check it and we know that it's not got some fucking... We're a smart country. Do you know what I mean? Like, fucking check... I've got to tell them whether or not I've got a banana in my bag when I fly into WA. Do you know what I mean? But they're bringing fucking tons and tons and tons of cocaine into... sneaking it in. They're sneaking in like billions of tons of bananas. You know, like this is the crazy part. There is smart ways for us to address these things. We can do this. We can do this. We don't need to be nanas. We can be in control of it. It's not all about the government being in control. The government doesn't have to regulate fucking everything. It doesn't also need to be left to the free market like they did in Portugal. There can be a balance. You know, there can be a thing where if you, if you decide, hey, I think I might want to go onto, like what they do in America, I want to go onto a register because I've decided that I like to have X, Y, and Z. Okay, sure, sign up for it, go to your doctor, talk about it. Hey, do you think that's good for you? I think that's good for me. How are you going? And be able to have that medical conversation, stay on the register, how you going this month? All right, you're going all right, you're going all good, up and down, whatever, Trevor. Rather than having to go and, talk to some fucking, English guy in some back alleyway and whatever, and apparently it's this or whatever. we moved to a place where we actually know. We don't have an issue where the issue a few years ago with nitrazines, where it was getting put into some of the illicit drugs, so people were getting drugs and they were taking them and dying. Because we don't know what the hell fuck was in them. These are the smart things that we can be doing. It doesn't have to be about, so the government can make money. Can I tell you what? The government can get fucked. Stop trying to make fucking money all the time. Fuck off. I'm so sick of giving you money. How about fuck off? It doesn't need to mean, government can regulate cigarettes. Because you didn't do that very well, did you? And let me tell you also, what's next is alcohol prohibition is going to be coming back because you keep making that more expensive. It's already started. Yeah, good on you. Prohibition doesn't work. Anyway, so misuse of drugs, really terrible. We have to get rid of it. But the way things are resolved is by people having conversations. Okay? I am not I don't want my kids on drugs. I want my kids out being functional members of society and being happy and healthy and not in jail and in trouble with the police or doing any of these sorts of things. That's what I want for my children. This is not a discussion about, let's try and, talk everyone in. This is not what it's about. I want my children to be safe and okay, and I want the legislation to be of a kind that is appropriate to what is happening. Like there was a Bob Marley song? Are you so blind? Free Nelson Mandela. Are you so blind that you cannot see? So this was a weird thing coming to Western Australia. Like, are you so blind that what is happening with our young people that you can't see that the peril that you're putting all of our young children at? It's just beyond it's beyond belief. So, look, I'm a big fan of I can't remember his name. Whatever, the Premier was good at the time. COVID boy, Labor. He said, we're tough on drugs. They brought in legislation that if you have 2 grams of cocaine now in Western Australia, you get in jail. Okay? What the fuck are you talking about? The fuck are you talking about? So if some 24-year-old guy is going to some festival and he's meeting up with his mate and his girlfriend and he gets 2 bags of cocaine, right? And for the 3 of them, right? God bless, because it costs fucking insane. Now, this is not an unrealistic scenario. So he gets a couple of grams of cocaine, right? And goes, splits it up between him and his girlfriend, his mate and his girlfriend. But he gets caught with those 2. He is going to jail. Do not pass go. In Western Australia, that young boy is going to jail. Not a violent crime. No duress, no threats, no anything, no violence, no anything. Young people making choices and paying money and going to work. We have legislation that says we catch Jono or April with that in her handbag, 2 grams. I'm sorry, you'll need to go to jail. Jail. The fuck are we all talking about? Jail's for the place for people in the community that we need to not have in the community. Yeah? This is the insanity. Okay? It is fucking mental. We have to end it. Canberra is a case study. They made the use of drugs legal, and surprise, surprise, 12 months later, they found out nothing happened. Nothing changed. People were the same. Less people went to jail. It's dumb. Drug prohibition affects everyone. Okay, so this is also the other issue. I'll just finish this up now. So marginalisation and domestic violence actually affects everybody in the community. It is not a gender-specific crime. The world just gender-specific issue. It is actually the world's best practice says it's a community issue because it affects everyone. So if you have marginalisation and you have domestic violence, then that impacts me as a taxpayer because it uses up police resources and the hospitals and the courts, and people that are victims of it also then are affected, and it affects them in the workforce, it affects the children, it affects the first responders, it affects their families. It's a community issue, and it also is a draw on our taxes. Same with drug prohibition as well. So drug prohibition is sucking all of our tax dollars to wages and all this other rubbish, right? And courts and lawyers and using up the court's time and family court, all this rubbish. So there's this huge draw on us personally. So even us as parents, it is I don't take drugs. You are still, if you're going, I don't take drugs, it doesn't affect me. It does affect you because your tax dollars that are in the bucket is less because we have to spend it on courts and hospitals and police and all of these just myriad of rubbish of trying to enforce these dumb laws that we know as lawyers prohibition does not work. We know it doesn't work. That's why we have regulated gambling. That's why we have regulated alcohol, and we had tobacco. But now the government's fucked all that up as well. Anyway, that's my soapbox. As I said, domestic violence lawyer, really need to work on marginalisation. I overheard a conversation with people today talking about closing the gap, and I had to say to them, you need to end prohibition because now we've got tobacco prohibition. So back when it was just, in communities that your bag of weed, your gram of weed was costing $100. Now your 5 packets of cigarettes at $75 a packet is costing $400 or $500. So and dad's smoking a gram of weed a day, mate. The family's already now $1,000 or so out a week just on cigarettes and weed. I haven't even bought any nappies or food or anything, and there's no jobs because we've also got a shit welfare system, and we're broke as hell. This is the marginalised. It's just crazy. That's one end of the spectrum, but then you've got all our wonderful young children going out and doing these things and deciding to make decisions, and we're saying that they're criminals. And by the way, if you get caught, then you'll lose your career or be scarred with that crime for life. Fucking honestly, we can do better. Let's do better. All right. Love you all. Take care. Thanks.